What's good, friends list, episode 97 of the Gamecast coming at you. E3 has been in a state of flux for the past few years, struggling to find its identity between a press and industry-focused event or a fan-focused event. While taking the year off in 2020 may have been a blessing in disguise for the industry staple, 2021's new online iteration still seems to leave many fans scratching their head. So, this week, we dig into what exactly an online version of E3 really looks like, as more partners actually continue to join the event, including Microsoft and the Xbox team. Should fans expect large-scale announcements after 2020 proved that many publishers can own the conversation about their products at their own events? What does it mean for 2022 and a return to an in-person show? We set the stage for the return of the once heralded event. Also, Sony trademarks once Xbox exclusive IP Sunset Overdrive, Epic Games and Apple spill the beans on conversations with Xbox and Microsoft, and much, much more. Coming up on the newest episode of the Game Pass Gamecast.
Now the fun begins.
Richard.
Stop! You violated the law.
Welcome back to another episode of the Game Pass Gamecast, your weekly go-to podcast for all things Xbox, Xbox Game Pass, and PC gaming, including news, rumors, and conversation around them damn good video games. You can catch new episodes of the show when they drop each and every Friday morning on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and all other major podcast services. So be sure to subscribe to us, rate us, review us, all of that jazz, the whole rigmarole I tell you every damn week. And follow us on Twitter at GPGC Podcast. Stay up to date with everything regarding the show, video games like and our dope giveaways. I'm your host, as always, Travis White, aka Travelus, on most internet platforms. Joining me, as always, my co-pilot, my partner in crime, Mike P-Pack, the toy soldier. Mike, what's good? What's going on? What have you been playing this past week? I know we've been playing a lot of Halo. I know we've been playing, some stuff here and there, but catch me up on what's been going on and what you've been playing yourself this past week.
Absolutely, yeah. For me, a steady diet of Halo, as you alluded to, but I've still been playing a lot of MLB 21, the show. Been playing a lot of Road to the Show, so just enjoying that thoroughly. Outside of that, the only other game I've really been mixing in that's any different is I did play a little bit of NHL, but outside of that, nothing crazy. The thing that I really want to talk about in this segment, just because, Halo is something that we're going to talk about again and everything like that. But since it's the game that I primarily will spend most of my time playing, I feel like it's worthwhile to cover this. So recently there's been a little bit of I guess we'll call it a situation, if you will. And unfortunately, when it comes to this, we're talking about, finally, since the PC port has finally, been out for a long time, we're running into the situation now in matchmaking where we're running into people that are cheating. And it's kind of like the old Halo mod days where they're flying around with auto aim and stuff. And it's really unfortunate to have to talk about it. And I really don't like to talk about negative stuff like this because I don't want to give I don't want to give the wrong thing attention, if you know what I mean. But in this case, 343 has, tried to get rid of the cheaters. And what they're doing is they're having people submit tickets, which I'm not quite sure why that would be the process. We have submitted video evidence of these players, their names, and it takes 343. You have to submit a ticket to get them banned. But I think what's happening is they're just banning the tag, and you can make unlimited amounts of tags. So unfortunately, right now, if you do get on the MCC experience, they're not really doing it in social because I don't know that there's not even really any incentive to do it in ranked matchmaking, but in social matchmaking, they're not really doing it. And ranked is where it's happening. And if you do play ranked matchmaking, the fix that I've been using, and it's unfortunate that I have to do it to play ranked matchmaking, but you have to turn your input settings on controller only. And the reason being is most of the people that are cheating are all the people so far, because it seems like since I turned that off, I haven't run into the cheaters at all. It seems like they're using mouse and keyboard. So from the settings menu when you're not in a matchmaking lobby. If you go to network and then there's the input settings and you can restrict it to controller only, it says that you'll have longer search times, which might be true, but in turn, you're going to get an experience that is generally devoid of cheaters in this case, unfortunately.
Yeah, and it's funny, the past, couple days we've been playing MCC, especially when it comes to like Halo 2 and whatnot, like you've been so easily to be able to like, you have such a keen eye for pointing that stuff out that like we won't even notice. Like Adam and I, like we'll notice, but more so like you're able to see the nuance with it and why that's actually an issue and, stuff like that. But it's like, it's crazy how much that has kind of gone a loop. And like, to me, with, how you're saying, oh, it's just so evident because it's, within the PC port and this and that. And it is definitely, I mean, you have to just logically thinking anybody who's really in, the PC gaming landscape or even just gaming in general, like who know about PC gaming, like know that not only, mods are at the heart of most PC gaming, just for the customization that, that style of gaming offers with, in PC, I should say. And, so in general, you would think just in general, a PC game is much more manipulative than, or modular, I guess I could say even too, than, a console port, because it's the box isn't modular. You have to open up. There's a lot more to it than, PC, the definition of it, most software and just the hardware in general, it's all modular. There's so much more customization options that come with PC, but, you being able to pull that out and say like, this is what's going on. This is the issues that we're facing. Like, that to me, knowing how integral PC is going to be for Infinite. I mean, where it's, I mean, I don't know about you. What do you think? I guess let me preface this before. Let me ask you this in a short form, more or less. But when we're talking about like when we're looking at Infinite, I mean, do you think the competitive scene is going to be like when we're talking HCS and whatnot? Do you think it is going to be? Are they going to use console or are they going to use PC?
When it comes to Halo Infinite, they're definitely going to use PC, and it's not just because the Call of Duty players play on it. It's because it has an active LAN system that you can use. You can play at unlocked frames up over as many frames as you can get on it.
Oh, yeah,
you know what I mean? There's a million reasons. The build is going to be more stable. It performs better. But unfortunately, which is what the community is kind of concerned about at this point, is like MCC PC has been out for a while. The MCC port's been out for how many years? And people now are just starting to cheat. And it's beginning to raise this suspicion or concern that perhaps this is going to cause bleeding into Infinite. Because at the end of the day,
well, that was what I was going to bring up as well. That, that does concern me a little bit for Infinite moving into that, where it's like if we're seeing it this evident at this point in the game's, lifespan, specifically the PC port, we're talking about, like, we're seeing it this late being brought in even to, the PC port's lifespan. What's that say for Infinite moving forward,
And there's very little incentive for people to cheat now. What are you going to do? You're going to get a level 50? Like, wicked cool, dude. I don't know. And right now it seems like
we're popping 50s back in the day, man. Like,
literally. Like, and I think like as far as I could tell right now, the cheat is kind of the cheat that people are using. It's intertwined. So they have aim lock, sure, but they just fly around the map at warp speed. Like you can't really shoot them. They're just super fast. And it seems like they're tied together right now. So it seems like the aim hack and the movement hack is tied together. But, it's concerning because when you're talking about cheats in computer games, when you incentivize it with tournaments and things of that nature, you got to be ahead of it because, there's third-party systems that people use to play Counter-Strike on, especially if they're not on LAN. You have ESEA and Faceit. And even those anti-cheats, people can cheat while playing on them. So with CS, a lot of people were able to have a little bit of aim hack. Now, it wasn't like crisp green lock. It wasn't anything like that. But you're able to kind of tune it to where you just have a little bit of aim hack. And if that is the case, if that becomes the case with Halo, you're already going to have some aim assist with controller. You kind of have to. It's the nature of the input. But if you're able to just have a little bit of aim hack, who's to say that you're not able to do that in a tournament from home, especially with the COVID situation?
Very true.
And even in the CS scene, Optic India had a cheater, Forsaken. He tried to cheat on LAN and they caught him, but like he was cheating on LAN. Like people will go any length to try to win some money. And it's like, there's very little incentive for people to cheat now, besides maybe they're using it to see I honestly think what's happening is they're trying to code cheats for Infinite. They're trying to see if the MCC build is going to be like, if they're coding in that is going to be anything similar to what they're going to use for Infinite. And what they're trying to do is I think they're honestly trying to get 343 to blink first and release some type of anti-cheat measure. And then when they release that anti-cheat, they're going to build cheats that can crack that anti-cheat. Yeah. It's basically like a game of chicken. They're trying to get 343 to flinch.
It's the episode of The Office where Michael and Dwight and them are all in the conference room and they're all pointing the fake guns, like the finger guns at each other. Like that is it.
I think 343 sees the player base where, like, I think yesterday. Now, granted, Apex new season came out, the new Arenas game mode was out, but on Steam, Apex was at like 1.2 million concurrent players, and Halo was at like $7,000. So you're talking about a super small player base, and it is like off-putting to the small player base that like, oh, you're releasing all these super cool updates for MCC. Like, we like this. We like to play all these different games. And I think with me, you, and Adam, it's true too. Like, I think the thing we like most about playing MCC together is we all genuinely like the Halo game, like every Halo game.
Absolutely.
And it's nice and social because you can turn them all on and just periodically turn them off once you play one and just keep it fresh, which is nice. But, you know, that's what a lot of people like about it now. But if you're not willing to support a $7,000 player user base, like, it's going to turn some people off for the future because it's going to be like, oh, well, what's your plan? And I don't think people are seeing the big picture where it's like, bro, if we release an anti-cheat now and they crack it, what does that say for Infinite? Like, now they're going to be a step ahead of us for Infinite. So what they're doing is I think they're getting these tickets. They're taking the data they're getting from the games, and they're probably building something for when Infinite comes out. Because Infinite's going to have an anti-cheat. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And that's the biggest. That's one of the only downfalls when it comes to having PC be the place that people are going to compete. Is cheats are they're a lot easier to make and code for PC for a lot of reasons, and that's the downfall of it. And you know, as shitty as it is that there's going to be cheaters, I just don't know how you're never going to get people to quit cheating. Unfortunately, I don't see how you can. No. People will cheat for the dumbest reasons. They want to cheat because they want to get all these kills in Warzone, and they think if I'm this high on the leaderboard, even though I'm a cheater, once I stop cheating, you know, I will stream and people will come see me because of how highly ranked I am. Right. Or in CS, the thing I've heard from a couple of different people that were cheating, even in ESEA, was, oh, I just need to get through all the shitty players, and then once I get up against the good players, people will see how good I am, right, and then I'll turn them off. And it's like, and that's kind of how it is with like me being like, I'm so balls deep into Overwatch, like that's how it is with other people. The justification for cheating is, oh, well, I'm fucking in elo hell. I'm hard stuck in here because I get shitty teammates. I may do good in here, but since it's, you know, team based, it only goes off wins, losses, anything like that. You know, that's going to justify your moving as much. You know, it's not individual based. I'm just hard stuck because nobody knows how to fucking play the game and blah, 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 and this and that. And I'm like, so let me get this straight. You cheating, getting an aim hap, getting whatever, you know, in this game, same deal like you're saying. You cheating, that gets you to the next rank of that. Like, it's not always the thing that, you know, everyone in Overwatch in the competitive scene who wants to learn, like, who want to get better and learn is the biggest thing that, like, pro level players and people say, and coaches and whatnot, is don't look at anybody else, look at yourself. Yeah. You could say, oh yeah, this person did X, Y, and Z, but I also could have done X, Y, and Z. I also could have done this different. Like, it's never just everyone else except you. Most of the time, people saying that, it's that person's, you know, it is, you got to look internally with that. But it's same deal. Like, okay, when you get up to that rank, what are you going to do then? Like, there's a reason why you're in that rank. There's a reason, you know, maybe you did fall into a little bit of elo hell, but that doesn't mean that you're hard stuck for 10 seasons in bronze. Like, there's a reason for that. Like, yeah, and for me, it's like cheating is a little bit of a, like, I see match fixing as a super like, I would never condone match fixing of any sort, and this is directly related to the iBuyPower team, but you know, the thing about that is once you match fix once and you lose, you know, like the iBuyPower guys pretty much lost everything, right? And Steel's now playing Valorant professionally, and so is Brax. But like those guys lost everything. They weren't gonna do that again on CS because if they came back to CS, they know everyone's watching them. You can't get away with something like that twice. The thing with cheaters for me is like, if you say, oh, like I'm gonna stop cheating once I make it. Well, like let's say you start making it and you start having dog shit results, which is what's gonna happen. And then, you know, you hear your team start talking about, oh, well, we need to drop him. Like he's not performing. He's just not gonna be able to cut it at this level right now. He needs more development. Then you're gonna like say, okay, well, and then you're gonna turn him on. Like I think once you're a cheater, you're kind of always a cheater. I don't think you can really become reformed from that because there's something in your brain, like, and I'm not talking like gaining edges over opponents in certain ways because I play poker. I believe that if you can gain fair advantages and edges, it is what it is. But when you're just blatantly cheating, that's when I take exception because gaining an edge, anyone can do that. If it's something that anyone can take advantage of, I'm down for it, which I guess argumentatively someone could say, well, if you are sick of people beating you with cheats, just cheat. Well, that's not the right spirit of this argument. The point I'm trying to make is like, I just don't see it as someone's willing to put it aside once they get to where they want to go if they're going to lose it. If you're willing to do anything to get somewhere, and this goes with this could be even a life lesson. If you're willing to lie, cheat, you cheat, you steal. Shout out to Eddie Guerrero. But if you're willing to lie, cheat, and steal your way to any to great heights, what does that say about you for when you get there? What happens if you start becoming threatened? Then what? Then you're going to revert to your old ways. It's like, oh my God, I did anything. I sold my soul to get here. Now I'm here and I'm losing it. What do I do now? And people will sell their souls while they're there in order to make sure they stay there. So that's the big thing with me is like, if you know friends that are cheating and, you know, they're your real life friend, and if they're cheating in a video game and to me, I see people that cheat in video games. I'm sure there's people that cheat in video games and are decent people outside of it. But also, if you're willing to cheat at a video game just to get a rank or be a little bit better than someone, what does that say about you in real life? Like, I can understand being competitive, but like, just put the work in, man. Like, sometimes some people you're not going to have it. I'm sorry to admit it. I know we're in America. We are personally in America, but we have some international listeners. But in America, we believe wholeheartedly that it's a land of opportunity. You can be anything you want to be. You can do anything you want to do. But some people, there's limitations. You're not going to go tell someone who's 5'1" who's 5'1" and 350 pounds, hey man, go try out for the Lakers. Like, you can be an NBA player. Like, yeah, maybe their height is going to inhibit them, but it's not to say other short people haven't played in the league. But man, you're overweight. Okay, so he loses the weight. Then he starts training, and what's his excuse then? It's like, then you start to have the conversation of like, these people have dedicated their lives to be basketball players. And I'm a firm believer in hard work. Like, I believe that you can work hard to get to where you want to go.
Absolutely.
Don't get me wrong. But there's people, and everyone knows someone that sometimes you're just born. Some people are born with some people call it the it factor, and I use air quotes. There's some people that are born with it.
Oh my God.
And there's some people that it's just there. And they have that it factor. Clutch time, you name it, when it's time to shine, those people have it. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. But you have to realize at the end of the day, not everyone's going to go become a professional gamer. Yeah. You have to find out in your life, when you fail at your goal, because you're going to fail in life, you have to decide what's next. Are you going to push harder and try to, reach your goals in that realm? Or are you going to take what you learned from this failure and apply it to a different point in life? But if you never fail because you cheat, you're never going to learn. And when something really kicks you in the teeth, then what's going to be your answer to it? Because you're not going to have one. Right.
No, 100%. Yeah, it's just, like you said, it says a lot about that person doing that and whatnot. It just, and at the end of the day, too, it's just ruining other people's experiences on top of that. Like, and we always talk about, we only have a finite amount of time in our lives now being full-grown adults with fucking actual responsibility and shit. Like, we only have a few hours a day probably on average to go and play games. So it's like, if you get somebody in there consistently ruining your time because they're cheating and whatnot, like, it's just a waste of time. Like, and that sucks because you never want to waste that time. But no, you're right. It says a lot about people. And it just, you would think at this point, like, with so much emphasis put on cheating and so many anti-cheats and so many, various things, that it would just kind of start to phase out a little bit. It's just, but it's easier than ever at the same time to have access to, the software to do that. So it's a double-edged sword, but it sucks. I mean, it's a pain in the ass. I think, I'm trying to stay positive about Infinite in terms of that aspect, that, hopefully, like you're saying, maybe they're playing chicken. Maybe they're trying to see what can be done to this game and what they can exploit so that they can build that anti-cheat or modify the anti-cheat that they are building now to properly, implement that to Infinite. But I don't know, man. We're going to see. And it is going to be interesting. Like, that is going to say a lot about what that game, looks like long term. And we keep talking about Infinite being hopefully the game to bring Halo back and the game to potentially, give Halo the spark that it needs. And, it's stuff like that from a competitive standpoint that you scratch your head and you're like, hopefully, all right, whatever, like, we'll see type of thing. But
yeah, because competitive integrity is a huge deal to pretty much every sport or esport, and that's one of the things. Like, Valve just recently said that you can be VAC banned if it's not for CS. Like, we'll let you back in, because people can become VAC banned for weird things. Like, I know people have VAC bans from like Call of Duty and stuff. It like the anti-cheat flagged some program that like wasn't cheating, but it got flagged, and now you have a VAC ban, and now you can't compete in Valve sanctioned events. Like, I get that side of things, and that's what Halo needs to really be concerned about. Is like, you can't afford to lose that competitive integrity, because the community is already fractured as it is. It's already very skeptical. You can't lose competitive integrity by being riddled with cheaters, especially in the main game. Like, Warzone's absolutely riddled with cheaters, and that's a shame. But if the Halo BR is riddled with cheaters, like, that's one thing. But if the competitive nature, like the competitive playlists, are going to be riddled with cheaters, that's going to be a whole nother problem. You know what I mean? No,
100%. Completely agree. So on my end, though, just kind of like, I've kind of been in this mental mindset of RE8's coming out, or RE Village, whatever you want to call it, coming out on Friday. So I've kind of been like steering away from playing any super like single player games or anything like that. But the new Overwatch season begins today. Actually, it might have started already. So I'll have to play I'll have to do my placements and stuff like that for today. But
me and Adam lost our third horseman.
Now, trust me, it won't. As long as I get my placements, I'm good. I want to get my placements early, just so I have them kind of set in for the season and know where I'm going and whatnot. But we're not. Trust me, you haven't lost. I've actually kind of cooled off a little bit on Overwatch, but I still want to have my placements, so I don't have to worry about that.
We have to play. We should play them together and see if it'll let us queue our DPS in your tank roll together, because maybe if it lets us queue together and I'm going to place higher, maybe because you'll be playing higher elo players, maybe we'll be able to get you placed a little higher. I don't know if it'll let us do that, but
or at least close the gap a bit to be able to actually queue up, like you're saying. Yeah. So
yeah, because I think if you had some more, like, because I've played with you when I was a support or even a tank, and I'm like playing as Orisa and I'm gold damage, and it's like, bro, like, I get that I'm shooting everyone out all the time, but come on,
no,
I'm doing 5 damage a hit.
Yeah. Oh no, trust me, I've had a few games like that recently where I'm playing like. I usually I've been maining Baptiste this season in support, and like there's been games where I'm like getting gold heals, gold damage, gold kills, and I'm like, this should not be this way, guys. Like, come on, please. Like, anything.
Like,
come on. But
people are just toxic as shit to you.
Oh my god, yeah. Overwatch is up there with the worst toxicity, in gaming. It's fucking embarrassing. But outside of that, my fiance and I, just real quick, I want to go over. We've been playing It Takes Two, the new game from Hazelight, the developers behind A Way Out and Brothers Tale of Two Stories. From Joseph Ferris. If you guys don't know who Joseph Ferris is, it's the guy who went on the Game Awards, said fuck the Oscars. That guy. He's crazy, but he's awesome. He makes fucking fantastic games. It is, hands down, it is going to end up being, I feel very safe saying that it will be in the conversation of Game of the Year at the end of the year for me. hands down one of the best gaming experiences I've done this year, specifically when it comes to my fiance and I playing for co-op. It is awesome. We're not done yet with it, but we're probably about halfway through. We haven't had a time to really play the past couple nights, but I'll tell you what, man, I can't say enough good things about this game. I hope more people get to play it. And at a $40 price tag, like right off the bat, you can't beat it. So definitely, if you're interested in playing a strictly co-op game, you could also do co-op online too. And just like every Haze-like game, you don't have to, for that online co-op experience, you only have to buy the game once, and you could share it with a friend via online. You just they'll send them an invite with a download link, and you'll get into a version of the game that you guys can play as long as just one person owns it. So, which I think is a great practice. So yeah, eventually when we finish it, I'll be able to talk more about it. But and then I also did the RE Village demo on PC this time. Didn't get a chance to do it on Xbox. I'll probably maybe try to do that tonight, just so I have an idea heading into tomorrow when the game launches. But I would imagine it runs just like it did on the PS4 when they had their early access demos and stuff like that. I'm not worried about that. But I wanted to try it on PC. PC, it fucking murders it. It's fucking gorgeous, especially at like 1440p and higher. But it's fucking excellent because Capcom just does a great job optimizing all of their PC versions of the game, in my opinion. But I digress, Mike. We got a big show to go through, so let's head into Button Mash before we get too long in the tooth here. And if you're new to the show, Button Mash is where we go over our quick hit news stories for the week to get you caught up before we go into our big topics. So let's kick it off in Button Mash, starting with, it looks like Sony has registered a trademark for the previously Xbox exclusive shooter Sunset Overdrive, which was a big early exclusive for Xbox that really, in my opinion, is one of the most underrated games in the catalog of the Xbox One, and really from the past generation. I love that game, and if you're a fan of Marvel Spider-Man or Miles Morales, you definitely can see where they got the inspiration for the swinging mechanics, the movement mechanics, everything like that from that game. So if you have a chance to play it, it's on Game Pass, it's on PC, go ahead and grab it. And now it looks like that it might be coming to Sony now that obviously Insomniac is owned by Sony. But anyways, spotted by Nibel on Twitter, the trademark was registered at the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office in late April. It doesn't confirm anything, but it is interesting given that Sunset Overdrive was initially exclusive to Xbox One upon its release in 2014. The game came to PC in 2018 before Sony acquired Insomniac as a first-party PlayStation studio in 2019. This means Sony can lay claim to the game and are clearly interested in maintaining its patent, but whether they intend to actually do anything with the property is anyone's guess. Interestingly enough, Sunset Overdrive director Drew Murray recently rejoined Insomniac Games after a stint at Microsoft's quote-unquote Quad A Perfect Dark studio, The Initiative. Up next, with just over a week left before the launch of Mass Effect Legendary Edition, EA has confirmed that the Xbox Series X can run the game at 120 frames per second. Up until now, it was unknown how the classic trilogy of games would run on the Xbox Series X. Legendary Edition director Mac Walters told IGN in an interview earlier this year that the team has, quote, some targeted unleashing on the game so that it will leverage a little bit more of the power of the next-gen series beyond just the faster load times you would expect from an SSD. Now we know exactly how the Legendary Edition will run on next-gen consoles, both in the game's, quote, favor quality mode and the game's, quote, favor frame rate mode. There's a lot of tongue twisters this week. Thanks to an update posted today by EA. Here's what you can expect. The Series X will be up to 60 frames per second in 4K in favor mode and up to 120 frames per second in 1440p in favor frame rate mode. The Xbox Series S and Xbox One X will be up to 30 frames per second in 4K in favor quality and up to 60 frames per second in 1440p in favor frame rate. And then finally, obviously, the Xbox One, the original one, up to 30 frames per second at 1080p in favor quality and up to 60 frames per second in 1080p in favor frame rate. And also, too, as reported by Twisted Voxel, the patch for day one that's coming, it appeared on orbuspatches.com, and it includes improvements to performance, stability, ambient occlusion, and lighting, both visually and performance related. It also fixes crashes and miscellaneous content too. But here's the kicker: at 11.8 gigabytes, this patch is bigger than the base game of the original Mass Effect's 6.3 gigabytes, Mass Effect 2's 9.25 gigabytes, and Mass Effect 3's 10.6 gigabytes. It is not, however, bigger than Cyberpunk 2077's Day 0 and Day 1 patches that came in at 43 gigabytes and 28 gigabytes respectively. I remember when I was installing that shit. Luckily, I pre-installed it. I still had the update on top of it when it came to Cyberpunk. Holy fuck. That was big.
Yeah.
Anyways, Microsoft's new Fable game is being developed using the Forza engine, according to a job listing on Microsoft's website. The listing for a software engineer states that the team at Turn 10, developers of the Forza series, will be working with the Forza tech engine and will, quote, be enriching the toolset to support an open-world action RPG, Fable. Not only will the engine be powering one of Microsoft's most anticipated new titles for the Series X, but the role also involves adding some new bells and whistles to the engine, including, quote, new features like ray tracing, which are becoming increasingly utilized in AAA game development. Apex Legends has launched both Season 9 and its new permanent 3v3 mode called Arena, and its popularity has caused server issues that keep players from experiencing new content. While some players have been able to get matches, Apex Legends servers have continued to struggle through its launch, and even up to today, really, I've been hearing some things about that. Respawn did put out a post about regular updates about it on social media, and one saying, quote, all platforms are continuing to recover, but the issues persist. In particular, our marketplace server is struggling, which is restricting players to base legends and limited skins. We'll keep the updates coming, Respawn wrote. Images from Battlefield 6 have allegedly been leaked ahead of the game's official reveal, and they showcase big storms, a rocket ship, helicopters, beaches, and more. Tom Henderson, who has published multiple Battlefield 6 reports in the past, have confirmed that these images are in fact real. Furthermore, they match with sketches Henderson drew of the scenes in April that were from a teaser trailer set to be released at some point in the future. Quote, I'm not going to retweet or share for obvious reasons, but yes, the two Battlefield images that have been leaked in the past hour are real, Henderson wrote. Quote, I'm not sure why the leaker has decided to capture the exact same screenshots, although the helicopter shot is a few frames out, but the screen grabs were likely captured via Zoom or something like that, which explains the low quality. We're not long away now, end quote. Next up, according to confidential documents, Microsoft is planning to reduce its 30% revenue sharing for the Xbox Store games by 18%, moving the split between developers and itself from 70-30 to 88-12. As reported by The Verge, these documents were filed for the upcoming Epic Games versus Apple case in January 2021, and state that, quote, all games will move to 88-12 in calendar year 2021. Also stated on the same page is the already announced news that Microsoft will be increasing the revenue share of PC games on the Microsoft Store by the same 18% on August 1st. This would be a significant move for the console games industry, as Xbox, Nintendo, and Sony currently have all of the revenue share split at 70-30. Microsoft's move on the PC side has put in line with Epic Games' 88-12 split as well, and moved it away from the 70-30 split that Steam still uses. Also, too, got new games coming to Game Pass here. Dragon Quest, this is all in May too. Dragon Quest Builders 2 comes to Game Pass on console and PC May 4th. FIFA 21 console and PC via EA Play on May 6th. Outlast 2 on xCloud, console, and PC on May 6th. Steep coming to xCloud and console on May 6th. Final Fantasy X and 10-2 HD Remaster is coming on console and PC on May 13th. Just Cause 4 Reloaded coming to xCloud, console, and PC on May 13th as well. Psychonauts coming back to Game Pass, I believe, coming on May 13th to xCloud, console, and PC. Red Dead Online coming to xCloud and console on May 13th, and Remnant from the Ashes coming to PC on May 13th. Leaving Game Pass, though, these are all May 15th as well. Alan Wake on console and PC, Battlefleet Gothica Armada 2 on PC, Dungeon of the Endless on xCloud, console, and PC, Final Fantasy IX on console and PC, Hotline Miami on PC, and Plebe Quest, the Crusaders on PC. And before we kick into our big topics, we got to go over the review roundup for Resident Evil Village, because it's coming out well, now, actually, if you're listening to this now, it is out. Go buy it because the game looks fucking awesome, and I'm so excited for it. So this right now we're sitting at an 82 on Metacritic for the Xbox Series X version. For the PS5 and PC version, it's been right around 83, 84. So I would say they're pretty much all the same at this point. And I've actually heard that the Series X runs at like maybe a 10% bump compared to the PS5. So at least from Digital Foundry, I believe is who put that out. So yeah, go and check that all out. It's all going to be the same. But OpenCritic right now, who I usually try to go with for a broad score, right now sitting with an 84 average score, with 86% of critics recommending it, giving it the mighty label. And a few excerpts just to kind of give you an idea across the board with it. IGN gave it an 8 out of 10, with Tristan Ogilville saying that, quote, Resident Evil Village is a genuinely engrossing and increasingly combat-heavy continuation of the Ethan Winters story. Games Radar gave it a 3.5 out of 5 stars, with Leon Hurley saying, a strong start and an okay finish makes this average out as decent, but not an amazing installment, end quote. And finally, PC Gamer gave it an 85 out of 100, with Andy Kelly saying, quote, a grimly beautiful collection of killer horror set pieces with some of the most memorable, grotesque enemies in Resi history, end quote. So, looking good so far for Resident Evil Village. I'm really excited to fucking play that game this weekend. Anyways, though, Mike, after we ran through all that, anything you want to run back before we head into our big topics for the week?
The only few things I really want to touch on briefly, because I did make my segment at the beginning very long. Sorry about that, folks. But
yeah, what the hell? Fucking A. No, I'm kidding.
It's our show.
I'm totally kidding.
Sunset Overdrive, that's a game that, like, it might have went under the radar, and it might still be under the radar. I wouldn't have ever played it if I didn't get the Xbox One, which I'm still have. It's still sitting right beside me. That's white. That was the Sunset Overdrive Xbox. I was genuinely pleasantly surprised by Sunset Overdrive, and it is a little bit of a hit that we're losing it. The customization on Mass Effect is incredible from EA, because that means maybe we're going to see that in more games, because I think that's the better option, to have the favor quality option versus the favor frame rate option.
It definitely started becoming a thing, I noticed, and I think rightfully so. It just naturally happened. Like when we got the PS4 Pro and the Xbox One X, like when we got those mid-gen refreshes of the console with the extra power bump up to 4K and whatnot, like that's when we really started to see that. But now it's becoming like, oh yeah, that's just like off the bat, that just should be a customization option that you have in pretty much every game now, especially any next-gen game that, like you're saying with Xbox, now with the Series X being like, hey, we'll boast up to 100, this thing will do up to 120 frames per second with most games. Like, okay, if you're doing that, clearly there needs to be some concessions in certain areas because it is a console. Like, having those options gives players more options and more reason to actually play it on this console. So I'm right with you that it's totally awesome. They need to do that in every fucking game, period.
I also wanted to just briefly, some of the games that are coming to Game Pass is crazy. We're not losing a ton. I know Adam would probably fight me about Alan Wake, but it's just never been my cup of tea. But I think the revenue sharing that, I think it is appropriately placed in Button Mash, because there's not much more to say about it. But like the revenue sharing almost kind of in a way feels a lot like they are trying to create more incentive for more studios to release games on the Microsoft Store on PC. And also, like, this is going to make more game dev studios seriously consider their ties with other companies, because Microsoft's going to give you a huge chunk of the money that you make from the game. I think it's a big deal. And Microsoft has the money to take the loss, which I'm sure they don't care. But this is something that, like, it feels like they're still gearing up to get more game dev studios. That's just the way I see this. But also, this is like, it's just a good thing for everyone involved, because Microsoft isn't going to lose any more money, especially if they get more dev studios to make more games for them, because they're giving them a bigger chunk.
Yeah. And it's just, I think now that just so much emphasis has been put on the, inside baseball aspects of the games industry, because of, there's so many outlets like us, related to us, like podcasts and content creators and things like that, who have been in the games industry, who are kind of pulled away from that but doing still content around it, who are able to pull back that veil a little bit, and obviously more we're having more media outlets take journalistic approaches to games as they become more quote unquote, validified. Like, we're starting to see that more and more happen. We're starting to see the curtain pulled back a little bit, which I think is important because then, it lets developers, they don't have to talk about that. They don't have to take that like, oh, they're just ungrateful or they should just be happy they're getting this game out, yada, which is a stupid approach or mindset to have to begin with. But, if now they don't have to worry about that because people are seeing that first and foremost of, oh, like Steam is taking 30%, like, yeah, for games, yeah, for the Ubisofts, the EAs, the big fishes out there who are making these AAA games, like, who are still getting a good kickback on it and who don't have to worry about money necessarily because they have the capital. If they could take a hit, God forbid, that doesn't hit as much when we're talking about, them compared to a small indie studio who is, 3 people working on it full time, maybe at most, like, and their games put out for $20 and like, we always hear how, hard discoverability is on Steam and, a lot of these different storefronts now, it's, they get lost in the wayside there, then what? And when it is bought, they're getting 30% of that $20 taken. Like that could be a lot. It could add up. Like we're talking about only a few employees. Like that's where it kind of hits. And, Microsoft's always really been committed to, the Idea at Xbox initiative with independent developers and whatnot. So like, to me, that makes more sense that it's just natural that I think we're going to see that because they know that the more people who get on their platform, the more people who want to invest in their platform means the more money they're just going to make. Yeah, if they peel it back and like, yeah, they're going to take a little less of a cut. That means more people would want to put their games even potentially exclusively on the Xbox store. So why not? Why wouldn't they want to do that? Because at the end of the day, that means more money is going to be coming in their pocket because more people are going to want to get into their ecosystem. Like that seems like a more profitable approach than, for long-term success, I would say. Then you can adjust it maybe or whatnot. But even then we've seen with Apple, after they got a lot of success with Fortnite and whatnot, they started pulling that back saying like anybody who goes on our store, we're only going to be doing this cut. And if you're making this much money or whatever, you don't have to and you're using Unreal Engine, you don't have to worry about paying X amount for this stuff. Like we're not worried about that because Fortnite makes up a lot of that. So we're just worried about getting people in now and keep getting people into our ecosystem. So It makes sense. 100%. So Mike, let's head into our big topics for this week in the news in the week of video games and Xbox and all that jazz. And really, I kind of wanted, this kind of popped up today as I was putting the show together, and I kind of wanted to just touch on it. These 2 news articles really, in general, kind of like, there hasn't been anything directly, I don't want to say directly Xbox related for this week, because there's been a lot of like games and stuff like that. Like I said, RE8, that's a huge game for Microsoft this week coming out, albeit third party, but there hasn't been necessarily any big launch info, but it's been a lot of info that surrounds games that are coming to Xbox or that deal directly with Xbox, and Xbox has been pulled into this. So one of them, though, and it's been one that kind of like, admittedly on the show last week, the week before, kind of said, this has been falling under the radar because we didn't really see the emphasis put on it or whatnot, but it seems like might be changing a little bit. And I'm talking, of course, about E3 this year. So we just got confirmation now that even more third-party developers and more entities in gaming are starting to jump on the E3 wagon here. And it looks like they have now confirmed that Square Enix, Gearbox, Sega, and more are coming to E3 this year with presentations of some sort. So this comes from Leanna Ruppert over on Game Informer. As always, the link in the description. Go over there, give everyone a Game Informer and all the articles that we, share with you and whatnot. Make sure you go over there, give them clicks and whatnot, so they all get the views and whatnot from that. That's always important. So anyways, E3 2021 has confirmed even more companies that will be attending this year's digital showcase, including names like Square Enix, Sega, and more. The virtual event is set to take place next month, offering new looks, fresh reveals, and a celebration of the gaming community. Even though E3 2021 will be a digital event this year due to the lingering COVID-19 concerns, that doesn't mean that there won't be a few surprises to be had. The ESA has confirmed that even more companies that are joining E3's lineup this year, including the following companies: Square Enix, Bandai Namco Entertainment, Gearbox Entertainment, Verizon, Freedom Games, Devious Eye Entertainment, Turtle Beach, Verizon, Binge, and Xseed Games. Already confirmed companies include Nintendo, Xbox, Take-Two Entertainment, Ubisoft, Capcom, and Warner Brothers Games. Sony and Electronic Arts are once more sitting out E3, opting into their own showcases instead. Konami has also confirmed it won't be in attendance despite having several, quote, notable projects in the works. I doubt one of them is Metal Gear, so who the fuck cares? Quote, E3 2021 is set to continue its legacy as the premier video game studio event as we add new publishers, sponsors, and partners, said Stanley Pierre-Louis, president and CEO of the ESA. Quote, we can't wait to share more details about this virtual event for audiences around the globe. E3 2021 is set to take place from June 12th to the 15th. Also, too, included in Konami, they're probably not doing anything with Silent Hill either, so fuck that. That's the two things I want. Konami can do two things. They can do Castlevania if they want. Sure, whatever. I'm not the biggest Castlevania guy, but just give me more Metal Gear and give me more Silent Hill, specifically Silent Hill. I haven't played a fucking Silent Hill game in a long time. A good one, that is. Anyways, though, I think it's really time, Mike, that we kind of have a conversation about E3. I know we've kind of touched on it briefly a little bit and kind of, treaded around it because we didn't really know what we're getting out of E3. And we really don't know necessarily that much as it is to begin with still, but... and I definitely still stand by my statements that the bigger entities, such as, the Microsofts, the Nintendos, they have confidence to do their own digital events outside of E3 to begin with. Like we're seeing with Sony and like we're seeing with EA and whatnot. And EA already did EA Play to begin with. And, it would be at E3, but it would be outside of E3. It'd just be around E3 and it would be in the, LA at the same time, basically. But they weren't a part of E3. They didn't have an E3 booth. Kind of like Microsoft, where Microsoft does it out of the Microsoft Theater in LA, that it's like, they don't have a booth inside E3, but they're still at E3 technically, type of thing. So, but they have the confidence to do now digital events outside of E3, like our Xbox game showcases, like Nintendo Directs, whatever. But, so their showcases, I think at E3 might be a little bit lighter. I don't know, but maybe the ESA is trying to really hit this harder than I anticipate, specifically when we're talking about third-party partners like Square and Bandai Namco and whatnot. So we've been hearing a lot of rumors about, Bandai doing a presser for a long time now. So, this may be the perfect size for that to, we may finally see Elden Ring there. So many people have been asking, where the fuck is it? Where the fuck is it? We haven't seen it for 2 years now. Like, give us something, and now that we have confirmation, sure, Bandai may be doing a presser there. Maybe that's where they want to own the message of at least them instead of doing it at an Xbox conference or something like that. Who the hell knows? So, Mike, do you see us getting reveals such as like an Elden Ring, such as, these marquee third-party titles that, are either rumored or in development we know about and we haven't seen them for a while, at E3 or anything like that? Do you think we're going to see that from third parties in general? And even hell, too, you know what? I'll even throw in, the Microsofts and Nintendos who are still going to be involved with E3. Do you think we're going to get an E3 caliber reveal that we've known in the past? Or do you think this iteration of E3 could really kind of flounder under the current, still current identity crisis they're kind of suffering from, still not knowing, well, do we want to be a press event? Do we want to be a press event? Do we want to be a public event? What do we want to be? So what do you kind of see in all of this?
I see, E3's in such a unique position, and I think the general consensus around America, around the world, well, particularly in America, is that COVID's over. Obviously, based on the numbers and everything, not necessarily true, but we are getting closer to, getting it under control. So the idea of in-person events, I don't think is very far away. I could see, they're starting to let people go into stadiums and stuff. I could see bigger in-person events, coming probably in the fall, because I know with Halo esports in particular, they booked a venue that's going to happen late 2021. So there is going to be an Infinite tournament this year. I think, with the COVID vaccine being more readily available, I think, that in-person events aren't that far away. This is important for a couple of different reasons. These companies, Square Enix, Bandai Namco, Gearbox, they're not tiny indie companies, but they're not the titans of the industry. With all due respect, great companies, they make spectacular games. And I'm not trying to say anything negative about them because they're smaller, but they're not an EA. They're not a Sony, those types of companies that have their own entities. They can do whatever they want. I see this as a unique opportunity for a Bandai Namco, a Square Enix, to really be the star of the show. Because I know Microsoft is going to be there, and there's going to be some Microsoft games there. But by and large, you don't have to deal with EA. You don't have to deal with the big Sony games. You truly have an opportunity to make this your own type of thing. Where could Square Enix do their own stream? Absolutely. Could Bandai Namco? Sure. But this is an opportunity to get your game to flash across the screen and have a great presentation while it has a lot of viewers. You know what I mean? I think this is a unique opportunity for these smaller, not tiny, not indie, but smaller dev studios to really take this as their own and just blow the doors off of it. And I actually am pretty hopeful for E3. I think that the unique nature of it being online offers a lot. I think you can do some pretty cool things with your exposure to the game. Like if you're Square Enix and you're making a game set in Sweden, you have the opportunity to go to Sweden, fly your employees to Sweden, and stream right from Sweden. And be like, these are some of the environments that you can experience, and have like a drone fly around and get people to see like a place like that in person so they can get excited for it. That's the type of stuff that I could see happening with this. And it's something that's so unique because going to LA for E3 is something that we have talked about wanting to do for a long time. And I still would like to do it. Oh yeah. I would do it this year now that I'm vaccinated. I have most of my family members are all vaccinated. I have a lot less to lose. One of the things I was worried about with COVID was I could care less about me. I'm young. I'd get through it. I was worried about, I couldn't bear giving it to my family members, my loved ones. That was the thing with me personally. Now that everyone's getting vaccinated, I could, bear flying to LA and going in person and getting to experience these games in person. But I think that getting to see this is the setting for this game, that would be something that I would be super into. And I think other people might be into because, I think everyone's really interested, or everyone that was interested with Game of Thrones, I think that they loved getting to see the real life places that they filmed and how crazy it is that the CGI can take you to all these different places and make them look so weird. Like that's all such a deep part of the art that some people could give a shit less, which rightfully so, because it's your art if you can consume it however you want. But there are others that really dig that type of that art medium, because at the end of the day, whether you like to admit it, video game studios hire artists. That's what they're called, digital artists. And the digital artists help make their games, make their characters, all that stuff. That's all a huge part. And this is a really unique opportunity to really showcase and let those individuals shine, because at the end of the day, people that get credit for these huge games are the bigwigs by and large. It's not like the artist who created Marcus Phoenix. It's Cliff Bleszinski. You know what I mean? Like it's that type of thing. These people that are usually kind of behind this, like in the back or in the shadows or in the background, they could be, properly thanked and put in the spotlight here.
No, definitely. And it's interesting to think of where E3 is at after seeing because for so long, man, E3 was Christmas in June. I mean, it was, if you were a gaming fan, E3 was your Super Bowl. And I have so many vivid memories of, even when I was like a kid, getting on the computer to when they first started like streaming or having archived footage of traditional E3 press conference. We're talking like Nintendo unveiling the Wii and stuff like that. Like, I'll never forget originally, I don't know, this is Xbox show, but using this as an example, like when they announced Twilight Princess for the Wii, and Miyamoto came out with the sword and shield, the Hylian sword, shield, and the hero sword, like, or the master sword coming out, and like I always remember that from that, and I always remember seeing videos of like people, press getting demos of Half-Life 2 and stuff like that when I was a kid, like finding those videos on the early internet, and And then, that evolving into when streaming started to happen, when you could pull it up on YouTube, when you could pull it up through the Xbox app and things like that, like you were able to watch all of them. It was such a thing that like I built my like whole week around that week that would come around, because it was just, there's always somebody doing a press conference. There's always interviews going on. Like it was where you went to find out, hey, just like, because it's, at the end of the day, it still was a press event, and it was a press event around, hey, we're showing our partners what, Microsoft, our internal studios are offering, for the next year, or what's coming down the pipeline for you to get, excited to work with us. Like it was all built around that. But then it saw, oh shit, there's a lot of people, fans who want to see this. They want to see the inside baseball. They're interested in seeing these trailers, these demos, everything like that. So they opened it up for fans in terms of streaming and whatnot. And then more fans saying, hey, we want to go to E3. We want to, get a press pass and go and win these experiences and do not, or whatnot. So then they said, well, fuck, why don't we make money off it? So they started opening it up to public and doing a couple days for public and whatnot. But it interfered too much with press. And like, so it's, E3 to me has this potential to be so much more than what it is right now. Like there is such a way to do things that, and granted, it comes down to money and whatnot, and I understand that, but even in their situation they're in now, where they're kind of stuck in this identity crisis between, hey, do we want to be a press event? Do we want to be a fan event? Do we want to be like a PAX? Do we want to do something like that? Or do we want to be like a GDC, where we're more focused on, keeping it internal and with press and, being a game devs conference or something like that? Like, what do we want to do? And I think, to be honest, Gamescom is the perfect model where you look at it. Not perfect, but it's such a great model to look at how they handle things. And really where Gamescom is the biggest gaming convention in the world, when they have it over in Europe, like there's a reason why. And you look at how many thousands of people go, and it's because they mitigate press and fan, experiences so well. And because they do it on such a grand scale, where the ESA, I just think, is so unsure of what they want to do. But they could do it simply as like, hey, listen, first half of the week is fucking press only. Nobody else. Press gets in there. Press gets their hands on it, where they don't have to rush around. And granted, it's just the nature of the beast. They're going to end up rushing to different appointments and whatnot. But they have enough room and enough space to get the content they need to make, because that's why we're here first and foremost, to get them this. Those are who we're talking to, whatnot. You guys could see all of this, stream it, do whatever. Like, yeah, we can maybe sell some fan tickets to the actual press events or whatnot, but like, you don't have to worry about like those 3 days they're doing, press only, or press and industry only demos and appointments, and that's it. Because the issue that comes up now is more press is pulling out because they don't want to deal with it. The lines and waiting and not being able to get appointments, stuff like that, when that's the whole point of them going. Like, there's a reason for that. So it needs to be, it can have two identities. They just need to split it a little bit better, where, yeah, they could have like, get an extra day at the LA Convention Center. I'm sure, yeah, it'll cost a fucking arm and a leg, but you know what? You'll be able to make a lot more people happy and it'll make a lot more money in the long run by doing these things that make people want to actually fucking invest in your event. Where you could do 3 days for press or 4 days for press and then 3 straight days for only fans. No press. And they can maybe set up, they can maybe do last minute things or whatever. But it's, strictly one or the other on those dates. That it's like, everybody can win then. You don't have to worry about exuberant lines on either side, or exuberant lines for fans, and you don't have to worry about press worrying about getting their appointments and stuff like that to actually make content around the demo, report on the demos and different things like that, or work with, specific developers. And, that's where I understand why so many companies are pulling out, because they're seeing the media pull out and they're seeing the people they're directly talking to, because they can give a trailer, a demo, whatever, to anybody at any time if they really wanted to. But they're building this around press because they want to get these people in front of developers. They want to get people hands-on with the people who are the vocal voice for them outside of their, PR departments and stuff like that. They want to make an impression on them, because we're going to buy it no matter what. Probably we're going to play it. We're going to see these games through that. That's how we find out about these games mostly, is through press, through trailers and stuff like that. And if they want to put trailers out, they want to put demos out, they can get them to us. They can give us a demo if they really wanted to, but they want press to get there and get their hands on it, and content creators and other industry members. And not to mention too, and a lot of people don't necessarily know this, but like, for a long time, E3 is where some big fucking deals went down. I mean, like, big industry deals of getting somebody in front of somebody from two different entities. It's a networking event.
Yeah.
And
everyone from all over the world is there. It's not like, it might be hard to get a hold of someone from Japan, you know, like, but they're at E3, and guess what? So are we. Like, things happen, and the next thing you know, you're at lunch with so-and-so, and it's like, it's definitely planned, but it is what it is, you know? Like, that's a huge part of it.
Yeah. I mean, realistically, like, how many opportunities do you think somebody from, let's say, one of Ubisoft's North American studios, or, you know, executives at that level, can get in front of Shigeru Miyamoto? Like, you know, and I'm not saying that's directly how it happened, but like, you know, you look at that, and you look at then, you know, Mario plus Rabbids popping up, and that game actually being fucking good, because even though the fucking Rabbids, you know, IP is fucking annoying for Rayman, but like, that game was actually good. It was XCOM basically playing, you know, with Mario characters. Like, and those conversations, those experiences probably wouldn't happen. And especially too, you look at how the actual reveal of that went at E3 too. Like, the nucleus of getting that is so fucking hard to actually make that happen without face to face. Like, you can do everything. Yeah, you can do everything over Zoom or whatnot, but like, meetings like that, like, you want to meet in person. You want to do that. So like, I understand why things are like they are, and I understand the ESA wanting to make money, obviously. So they see the fans wanting these events and wanting whatnot, but they also are starting to burn bridges with press and industry members, including the fucking people that they're wanting to host, in terms of like Microsoft, Sony, Ubisoft, EA, like, and we're seeing some of them still reluctantly come back, but like, I think the leash is pretty fucking short right now. Like, and I don't think that's an exaggeration. But at the same time, you know, I believe in EA. Or I don't know about that. I believe in E3, and I believe in what it can do and has the ability to do. I think it'll be okay. Like, I think they'll be able to find the spot that works best for everyone. It's just going to take work, and it's going to take communication. And that's another thing. Like, shit just hasn't been transparent. I mean, there were fucking industry members somehow getting like doxxed and shit like that because, you know, their information wasn't secure and things like that. Like, that doesn't help. Like, you're burning bridges at all ends, but they have to be transparent. They have to say when they fuck up. They have to take actual info into consideration. Like, so I'm really curious to see how that pans out this year and what the response to an online only E3 event is going to be. But at the same time, like, knowing that they're coming back in 2022 in person, taking the info that they have this year, like, I really like I said, I stand by that. I could very likely see Microsoft, Nintendo, the big dogs of this, non-third party partners saying, we're going to take our ball and go home. Yeah, we'll still, you know, do a thing here, but it may be updates more so than reveals. But I don't know. We'll see, man. Like, it's going to be interesting. Now, like you were bringing up, like, you know, Bandai and whatnot. Like, to me, that makes more logical sense to see them fit there, where I could see Elden Ring being like, hey, or Bandai saying, you know what, we haven't done a press conference yet. We haven't done this. We know we have this one fucking game that everyone in the fucking world who is into Dark Souls and whatnot in that, you know, echo chamber, all they want to see is this fucking game. We have the catalyst that could help us get a good start to doing our own events. Like, maybe they say, yes, let's play it safe and let's go the E3 route so we have that support. We can get as many people in as one place where, you know, Dark Souls is, while wildly popular within gaming, like, it is very much a niche community where it's not, you know, necessarily your Marios, your Zeldas, your Uncharted, your Dooms, your Final Fantasy, like that Souls, like, or the Soulsborne subgenre within like the action adventure titles and even RPGs to an extent, you want to call them that. Like, having that, it is a niche thing that like you may want to say, hey, yeah, I want to play it safe. I want to wait till they get, till we get one under our belt. Let's go with E3, see how that goes, yada yada. So I think that's where we'll see some of our bigger announcements, maybe from Ubisoft will get more with Ubisoft Forward happening right in that time frame. Like that makes sense that they already plan to do that. They're just saying, hey, cool, we'll partner up with you. Like third parties make more sense since it's more individualized. But Microsoft, Sony, Nintendo, like we're already seeing Sony for the second year again, or third year, I guess, really that E3's been there. That's like, hey, we're not doing it this year. Okay, cool. Like that's, and understandably, Microsoft, same deal. Like they have Inside Xbox now. They have the Xbox Game Showcase that they didn't have these things as solidified before. That it's like, okay, cool. Now we have those. Why don't we just own the message? Why would we need to go through? People are we're Xbox. We have a brand. People are going to come to us because they know that we have reveals there. We usually do. So why do we need to worry about cramming it into 1 week when we could own a week ourselves by doing it outside of that? Like having a big show. Yeah, we want to keep, I'm sure they don't want to burn the bridge with the ESA to, hey, if the ESA gets its shit together and makes E3 a viable option again, yeah, they'll come back to them and, be able to do it that way. Like, or they'll know that, hey, we can bring it back to, focusing around E3 the week that we normally do our thing. Like, yeah, we can do that then. And we could, maintain that relationship. But I mean, why not? Why not? If they're Microsoft, Nintendo, whoever, like, they don't need, the ESA needs them. They don't need the ESA right now. Mm-hmm. So it'll be very interesting to see how this all pans out and what this looks like then really moving into next year with, an in-person E3 and what that even could potentially look like. I mean, I wasn't necessarily I didn't have the biggest hope in the world when originally the ESA was looking into charging for E3 this year, the digital event, to watch it. When I started seeing that kind of float around, I was like, that is ballsy. That is bold. That is very bold for the situation you're in right now. Like, unless we're able to stream physically, like we're talking like PlayStation Now-esque experience, like streaming the game, like game streaming to us, like xCloud versions of the game by paying that $15 or whatever it is for the week. Like, unless I'm able to physically be able to play the games via stream or whatnot, no, absolutely not. But yeah, I'm so curious to see what this kind of moves into and whatnot. But anyways, like let's head into our last news article for this week. And it's more so just kind of like talking general about the whole Epic versus Apple in general. I know we kind of talked about it a little bit, but Xbox and Windows now keeps getting brought into it a little bit. But one that I thought was really interesting, one little tidbit that's come out of the case in the trial recently, was that Epic pushed Xbox to open its free multiplayer just ahead of the whole Apple and Fortnite battle. So this write-up comes from Tom Warren over on The Verge. As always, link in the description. Go over there, give Tom a click. He does great stuff over there in The Verge. We pull from it like once a week pretty much. Anyways, though, Epic pushed Microsoft to open up its Xbox network for free multiplayer gaming just weeks before the Apple and Fortnite battle. In the weeks leading up to Epic Games' decision to circumvent Apple's 30% cut on Fortnite in-app purchases, CEO Tim Sweeney sent an email to Xbox chief Phil Spencer teasing something big and asking whether Microsoft could time-free multiplayer with Fortnite Season 14. Quote, Epic has certain plans for August that will provide an extraordinary opportunity to hindsight the value proposition of consoles and PCs in contrast to mobile platforms and to onboard new console users, said Sweeney. While I can't share details with any third party at this point, I give you Epic's assurance that our efforts will be positive and support Microsoft, Xbox, and Windows. Sweeney also asked Spencer whether free Xbox Live multiplayer was coming and whether Microsoft could time it to support Fortnite Season 14. The season, Epic Games launched its alternate payment method that got Fortnite kicked off the App Store. Spencer replied, quote, we will get there and I want to partner with you, and that pushing these policies was, quote, at the highest levels at Microsoft, but implied Xbox Live wasn't ready to get free multiplayer just yet. Quote, totally understand, said Sweeney in response. I gather there's a lot going on at Microsoft nowadays. Anyways, you'll enjoy the upcoming fireworks show. The timing of the email is provocative, given the events that followed. Had Spencer gone along with the plan, it seems likely that Xbox could have opened up Fortnite to non-gold subscribers at the time that Apple was shutting out the game entirely. The fireworks show that Sweeney promised certainly kicked off with Fortnite Season 14 launched, and it has since resulted in Epic Games taking Apple to court in a trial that's ongoing. Microsoft did eventually unlock Xbox Live free-to-play multiplayer last month, but it wasn't as simple as Epic Games had hoped. Microsoft's removal of the Xbox Live Gold requirement came after the company was forced to reverse a price hike to its Xbox Live Gold subscription earlier this year. Microsoft had attempted to double the cost of a yearly Xbox Live Gold subscription, a move that backfired. Microsoft quickly reversed the decision and offered to remove the paywall for free-to-play multiplayer games. So, really, like I said, there's a lot of really interesting tidbits coming out of the Epic versus Apple trial currently going on, specifically when it comes to the hardware manufacturers that support Fortnite, specifically in our case, Xbox and Windows. So it's also really super interesting to see how Epic knows it was in a place of power over said partners and knew that, okay, we're going this route and we're going to come to a head with Apple and, being very tongue-in-cheek about it ahead, knowing that this is the play we're going to do. We're going to get a lot of fucking kickback. There's going to be, like they said, some fireworks going on. Like, let's touch with partners and see what, we could do outside with them to position ourselves well. So, they knew they had a position of power having this insanely popular game. You just can't blame them. Software is what moves hardware. So trying to get the most popular free-to-play game available for truly quote-unquote free, if you want to say, on a platform like Xbox makes complete sense, but it shows the power dynamic in the current games industry, really. So Mike, do you think we could have seen a much different narrative regarding the Epic versus Apple case going on if a move like this with Xbox, or really ever, but obviously Xbox being, focused in, hey, we want to, they weren't allowing free-to-play games to be free within Xbox. You had to have Xbox Live Gold and whatnot. Do you think we'd see a different narrative regarding Epic versus Apple if a move like this with Xbox really would have happened in time for Season 14 of Fortnite and the start of this whole battle? And really, how much do you think this could have played into the current hostility between Apple and Microsoft, even regarding Game Pass and xCloud and everything being on Apple? What do you kind of make of all this?
Yeah, this is new information that kind of peels the curtain back a little bit, because whenever you hear about this huge lawsuit, you're kind of like thinking to yourself, you're like, like what's really going on here type thing. Like what is springing this? What is causing this? You kind of think of all those things when you hear about this, and you wind up, saying to yourself, like, there has to be more behind the scenes. And we're seeing a little bit come out. This here basically comes to a point where basically Epic was promising things would go south with Apple if Microsoft, worked with them type of thing. So right. It's, they didn't straight up say lawsuit, which maybe if they did, maybe Microsoft would have had a bit of a different tone on it. But, you're looking at this and you're saying, boy, this is a new chapter. And then you're like, why is Apple beefing with Microsoft? Like, that beef has been over for a long time. Like, that beef has been, you're going back to like the 90s for that type of beef to be a thing, And then it comes out, then this news comes out and you're like, oh, that makes a lot more sense. So yeah, this is one that, Microsoft is a titan in the tech world, just like Apple is. And when Microsoft purposely or inadvertently, whatever Microsoft is going to say about it, takes a shot at Apple like this, or helps someone take a shot at Apple like this, what do you expect? Do you expect Apple to be like, hey, thanks, man. Like, thanks for giving that little guy some more, some more footing in this, thanks for, potentially screwing us big time. Like, do you expect them to be like, no, man, we're, it's cool. You might have cost us a shit ton of money, but we're good with that. Like, we don't care. Like, that's not going to be the case, man. Like, you can't, it's just one of those things where like Microsoft made their bed and unfortunately they're going to have to lay in it. And now, Apple has kind of overturned it and it does seem like we're making headway. And maybe Microsoft got into a conversation with Apple and we're like, hey man, like we didn't know that's what they were going to do. We heard that they were going to make fireworks, not, sue the shit out of you type thing, which like ignorance is bliss. Apple could be like, well, don't be so ignorant about it. Like, we don't care that ignorance is your plea. You can't plea ignorance in that. But it does seem like the two are moving past it, thankfully, in Microsoft and Apple. But geez, this is one where it all makes a little bit more sense. And as much as like people might disdain Apple for a multitude of reasons, and you could hate Apple because for a lot, but this kind of makes Apple look a lot better, in my opinion, than anything else. Epic looking bad, Microsoft looking bad. I think they all have a tendency to kind of look bad at points. This helps Apple's case a little bit in my eyes. Still not very high on Apple, still not loving it, but I mean, it makes a little bit more sense when they're petty like this. It's still being petty at the end of the day. You're multi-billion-dollar companies and your guys are being petty. Like, grow up. But at least I think it makes a little bit more sense that way.
No, definitely. And it's funny you say that too, like the pettiness of it. You look at the some of the stuff that's come out of the hearing that like you see that they kind of like there are, people reaching out like between Epic and whatnot to say like emails that come out and whatnot that them saying like, yeah, we decided not to go with, on Xbox game streaming and whatnot. Like we didn't want to do that. And that was post, this conversation. Like clearly they took, they may say, oh, okay, yeah, we're fine, whatever. But like, they're clearly being petty about a decision of, yeah, we want, because they were going to piss off, it's probably arguably its biggest platform in Apple, having access to, because how many fucking people in North America have iPhones? Like losing that access to that platform, like they were going to piss off another big tech giant. Hey, we want to have a platform that people can fall back onto to give us a little extra buffer in, oh, well, Xbox doesn't have free to play. Let's make sure we expand that. Like we'll push the envelope on this a little bit. And like, it's funny too. There was, I have to try to find it. One of the emails that came out, basically, Tim Sweeney emailed Apple at one point, or emailed Tim Cook about, I can't remember exactly what it was. And Tim Cook like forwarded the email to people and was like, who is this guy? Like basically it was like, who the fuck is this guy? Like type of thing. Like, so it's funny like to see all the dirt that's kind of come out on all this, but it is interesting to think about like how different this whole thing could have been, like where we could have seen potentially, we could have seen Epic supporting Microsoft a little more, given the situation they're in with Apple right now. We could have seen Microsoft supporting Epic a little bit more when it comes to, how, certain situations they're in with, and we're talking about Android and whatnot too. Like, it's really interesting how this is all playing out, because all it is billionaires being petty with each other and executives being just squabbling over what's pennies to them, I'm sure. Like it's I want to say it's interesting, but it's like, it's more so just like I said, it's just two monkeys, huge monkeys throwing shit at each other while, we kind of watch from the outside. Only, we're the ones paying them to be able to do this, like a zoo. Like it's just fucking ridiculous to a degree. Like the whole thing, like, and I still think the narrative that Epic is trying to push a little bit on being, oh, we're being this altruistic, like we're being noble about our cause and this and that, and people shouldn't be forced to do this and this and that. And I'm like, well, to be honest, it's Apple's platform. They can do whatever the fuck they want. Now, should they? Yeah, that's true. But like at the same time too, Epic, like, come on, man. Look at the revenue you're bringing in with Fortnite on the day, let alone the year or whatever. Like my God, like you're kind of squabbling over like pennies at this point. And yeah, like, of course, when you get on that platform, you're saying, and I'm not, this is not me supporting Apple whatsoever, because I personally don't like Apple products really. So when I say this, it's like, you look at, but you at the same time, you look at what Apple did or Epic did with Apple, saying like, hey, no, instead of going through the App Store, we're going to make our own platform that they don't get a cut of it. We're just going to put it out there. And like in the game, you could buy V-Bucks through us directly. You don't have to go through Apple. Well, okay, well then what the fuck is Apple going to do? Like, you're on their platform. They own it. Yeah. Like, you're going to have to give a cut because they're the ones who maintains that platform, not the software that, not Fortnite, but the ability to get Fortnite, to be the ability to, the cost of the servers, just to fucking be able to have people to be able to fucking download that, because how many fucking downloads I'm sure it had by the time it was taken off was through the fucking roof. Like, they have to be able to support that through a bandwidth, and everything like that. Like, it's just, there's so much with it that both sides are one's acting nobler than the other, and the other one's acting like they're innocent. It's ridiculous. I just think this whole thing is totally, absolutely ridiculous. That
it only harms the consumer.
Right.
It's
yes.
not
At
gonna
the
hurt
end of the
either
day,
company.
At the end of the day, they're the one. Epic's the one. Both companies are losing out on the fact that Fortnite is not on their fucking platform, and even too, they're both losing out on the fact that Xbox Game Pass is not on their fucking platform, or game streaming, or whatever you want to call it. Xbox's game streaming service is not on their platforms. So like, yeah, like you're both losing out on the money that could have come from that, because fucking Fortnite is still, whether we like it or not, is still one of the biggest fucking games in the world, and the one game that is truly, truly, truly cross-play, where you could play it on any fucking device you have, except now, obviously, Apple ones. It's like, you took away, just because you were both so bullheaded about your ideas, you both, you took the ability to do, make money between it. Like, I don't know, this business 101, like, yeah, sometimes you gotta, spend money to make money. Like, it is what it is. And yeah, there's a difference to say like, okay, we're bringing in so much money right now with this game for you. Can you cut us a little break? Like maybe 5% extra or something like that? Like, yeah, that's a little different than saying, no, we want to fucking upend the whole system and we want this and that, and saying that you're trying to make a statement or whatever for, the smaller guys or, whatever. But like, I get that. But at the same time, it's like, you're gonna make more money if you're, Apple and Epic. You're just losing money at this point. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. Like, they just completely blew it out of the water, in my opinion. But I digress. It's just, I feel like it's just never going to fucking end at this point. We're going to be talking about Apple and Epic forever. But anyways, Mike, let's head into Party Chat before we wrap up the episode this week. If you're new to the show, Party Chat's where we propose one question at the end of each week's show that we want to just discuss with you and ourselves too. It could be as simple as, what's your favorite story beat in the game? What have you been playing during quarantine? Or, it could be a little more in depth as to like, why is this negative stigma around gaming still exists? And after answering it ourselves, we kick it over to you to tweet your responses or email them to us over on Twitter at GPGC Podcast, or an email, bonusaccessory@gmail.com. And then we'll read some of them the following week. So, last week's question: do you think Microsoft is too focused on studio acquisitions over growing new studios internally? And Matt P. emailed into us, said, no, it takes more than just money to make grassroots studios successful, but money can buy you established studios with a proven track record. It's simple business. I can see where you get that, and I don't disagree to an extent. So, anyways, though, Mike, this week's question: with the rumored Resident Evil 4 remake coming within the next year or so, given the solidified success of the first-person perspective in Resident Evil right now, do you think we see a first-person mode implemented into the remake as an option? And two, to keep in mind, Resident Evil 4 is coming to VR and Oculus very soon. This year, I think, by the end of this year. And it's first-person perspective. So, granted, not a remake. It's just a VR version of Resident Evil 4, but it is in first person. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I could see that happening. I think it'll be something that it'll offer the add-on. So how Resident Evil 2 Remastered had the Claire story along with the Leon story, and also had some add-ons that made the game, a lot more replayability and everything. I see first person Resident Evil 4 as an option, as like a boost in replayability, really, in my opinion. That's just the way I see it, especially since the first, like, the VR modes coming out. That just makes total sense because they're already going to have the game built for VR, which is first person already, which is not something that the game has been in before. So like they're already going to have that version of it built. So that's kind of why I see it happening in that sense, is like they're already going to have the game built. That was my only trepidation, was like having to completely rebuild the game would have stunk. And that's something that I was kind of worried about. But since they're already building it again, I don't see why it's not realistic for that to happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Like, I very much could see that happening, and I think it will happen. Because I'm curious to see how, like, it's going to be a remake like Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 3. Like, it's going to be a from the ground up type of thing. But at the same time, now that they have the RE engine pretty much modified to be able to build worlds like that, be able to build experiences like they did with RE2 Remake and RE3 Remake, you know, I think now that the studios are going to have experience using that and doing it, like, I'm curious to see if we're going to see drastic changes like that to these remakes. Like, if that formula is already getting old, which I don't think so. I think it's fucking great. And I think the model that Capcom has in general right now with Resident Evil was great, where we get a remake, or we'll get a new entry into the series. It's going to be distinct to what's going on in the mainline series right now, a new entry in that. Then we're going to get remakes too. We're going to get your Resident Evil 2, 3, 4, Code Veronica, whatever, you know, that they put out. And then two, we keep hearing about the side projects like, you know, Resident Evil Revelations 3 potentially coming out and things like that. Like, that's great. And I think that's fucking fantastic. And I really enjoy what they're doing with that, because it, like we kind of talked about on the show before, like, Resident Evil has that bandwidth that can stretch. It's a franchise that has so much lineage and depth to it that you could do an experience, like, have experiences that pretty much fit whoever wants to play Resident Evil. There's an experience for you out there. And I think that's a franchise that does have that. But I really think now that, I think more so than ever, I think the whole thing behind the Oculus version of Resident Evil 4 is to get a gauge on what people think of first person in Resident Evil 4. Because Resident Evil 4 is such a game that I never beat, but is one of the most pivotal games of all time in modern gaming. Like, it is a very transformative game for so many people that it's almost like when Nintendo remade, you know, Ocarina of Time on 3DS, or whenever you're taking these experiences like Final Fantasy VII Remake, or, you know, things like that, that these games that have meant so much to so many people for so long, both critically, commercially, whatever you want to say it, that Resident Evil 4 is just like that, where if you're doing something different, or you're, you know, remaking, or you're taking a different approach, like, that is a risky move and you could potentially piss off a lot of people. But I wouldn't be shocked if we, you know, if that's looked at as, hey, we could do, you know, we're not going to do a full remake of the game or anything like that, but we're going to keep the environments the same. We're going to obviously make them for VR, but and keep a lot of the textures the same, all that kind of stuff. We're not going to upscale to that degree, or, you know, remake textures or anything like that. But let's put it in first person perspective, just to give us an idea and gauge what people think of the idea of that more than anything. So, like, I don't think sales are going to be a big deal for that, because there's not a ton of Oculus, you know, people who own Oculuses to begin with. So, like, they're not worried about that necessarily. Like, they're more worried about, like, we want to see the reaction to it, more or less, like the actual fan base reaction to the idea of playing this game in a pseudo first person, you know, perspective. So I don't think that's going to be the main way to play the game when it comes out in terms of Resident Evil 4 remake. And if there is a first person mode, not VR, but I'm saying just like we're seeing in Resident Evil 7, Resident Evil Village, like that style of first person, you know, so I don't think that's going to be the main way to play it. Just like GTA and Red Dead 2, like, you could play in first person. That's not the main way people play that. It's a third person action adventure game, you know, RPG, whatever you want to call it. So I don't think people will play it in that manner, but I definitely think there is a very good chance that we see a first person perspective easily. So, Mike, think that's going to do it for our episode this week. Why don't you tell people where they can find you on the interwebs, talk about all the stuff we talked about whether it's Resident Evil Village hype that we're talking about, review roundups, all that jazz, E3 and what the fuck it could mean going forward and what it could be, or just Epic and Apple, anything we talked about this week on the show and video games in general. Where can people find you online to talk about all that?
You can find me on Twitter at TOYSXLDIER. That's Toy Soldier, and the second O is an X. Or you can find me on Twitch at MP_Toy Soldier.
Nice. And as always, I'm your host, Travis White, aka Travelus on most internet platforms, including at Travelus_ on Twitter. That's TRAVLESS_ on Twitter. You can also find me streaming time to time on twitch.tv/Travelus_, same as Twitter. And I'm going to play some video games with me over on Xbox Live, or I should say the Xbox Network now. You can do so over there at just regular old Travelus. That's TRAVLESS, no underscore. And this, ladies and gentlemen, has been your newest episode of the Game Pass Gamecast, your weekly go-to podcast for all things Xbox Game Pass, and PC gaming, including news, rumors, and conversation around them damn good video games. You can catch new episodes of the show when they drop each and every Friday morning on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and all other major podcast services. So be sure to subscribe to us, rate us, review us, all that jazz wherever you get a podcast at, and follow us on Twitter at GPGC Podcast. Stay up to date with everything regarding the show, video games like and our dope giveaways. With that being said, Mike, I think that's going to do it for our episode this week. Thank you everyone so much for listening, sharing, and being a part of our growing community. Game on. Wash your hands, listen to the doctors. We're so close to the end. We see the light. Just stay a little tough, please. Anyways, listen to the doctors. Black Lives Matter, and we will see you next week.